episode 10 of, I'll say it Carm's way, NOFC. Fuck that. No one fucking cares. Episode 10. We are hot to trot. This one, I already forgot what the episode's going to be fucking called.
It's an
What's it
episode
called?
recap and various topics,
Yeah, well, that's what it's going to be.
which basically just means we were kind of too lazy to actually line up the speaker this week that we wanted to line up.
Yeah,
Busy,
that's
not
true.
lazy, busy. We were both very, very busy with our other
we're
normal
busy,
lives.
and not that anybody fucking cares, but we had a lot of shit going on, and it's just the same. We wrapped some stuff together, and we've been wanting to talk about a few different things anyway, so it's just as good time. So, with that being said, I'll let you lead the way of where you want to go this week. Oh, by the way, no, you know what? Let's start off with our group text. Fuck you guys, we're not stopping it. It's good to feel wanted, by the way. We had a few people reach out looking for episode 10 yesterday, and I led them to believe we're no longer doing it. I'm a loser. I have nothing to do. I'm gonna fucking do this until someone fucking censors me or sues me, like Calzone. Sorry, Con. Anyway.
Oh God! And away we go. And away we go.
Shit. So, what do you think about that?
So the background behind that conversation is we're still on a group chat with an undisclosed number of people we used to work with, and it's basically just a ball busting session, and all we do is kind of have fun, which is what you typically do in group texts. We don't really discuss incidents of work per se, but what we do discuss is like current trends of things, and everybody on our group chat still wants to follow our podcast. So Jay had the entire group last night kind of convinced that we were going to stop the podcast, and he had him going. So this is their big surprise moment. A certain person whose name rhymes with Allie.
Oh, AKA Tug Tug. Oh, shit. Oh, well, here we are. Anyways,
Timmy should be very happy we're mentioning his name. Oh, wait, we mentioned his name.
You're such a dick.
Happy Easter, everybody. Before we start, we want to say if you celebrate, Happy Easter to you and your families. We're actually recording this on Easter Sunday because we were so busy earlier in the week that we want to make sure we get a good one out to you folks. So happy Easter to everybody. If you celebrate, my family celebrates. Looking forward to going to my mom's later with my family. And good stuff. So go ahead. You go. You lead the charge. How do you want to go?
You wanted to talk about where we are and where we think we're going to go, and also a favorite episode. To be honest, I don't know as far as what my favorite episode is. We only had we had 3 guests. Being up at Louis was pretty awesome. I enjoyed that, and I thought that was a clever idea. I think we should do more of that. Obviously, Steve Negrelli is a super intelligent guy with he gave me a lot of warm and fuzzy feelings that I didn't realize I had in me. And that's no joke, because I'm a more level-headed, even-keeled guy when I view police.
Sorry, just clear.
And then obviously Seamus last week, who brought some controversy. And
wait,
speaking
did you
of,
just say you're level-headed? Let's rewind quick. Go back to you saying you're level-headed
regarding my views on police, not in any other capacity in my life at all. But so Seamus was a little bit of more of a controversial week, but I thought that was pretty good too. A lot of people reached out. He has a lot of supporters, I'll tell you that much. But something I want to bring up, I had a few messages that people asked me, whether it was picking up on vibes or the story itself. I was asked if I thought Seamus was lying. And I know you brought that up specifically during the podcast. You actually asked him, sorry, but I have to ask you, are you lying? And he said no. And I have to believe him. I have no evidence to say he was not lying. He had his lawsuit. He had his time in court, and that showed what happened. You can take that for what you want. I don't know. So that's my answer on whether Seamus is lying or not. I don't have any reason to think that he is. People are giving me clues as to things that he was doing that they were picking up on. I don't know. maybe reach out to him yourself. So I don't
Yeah.
necessarily have a
Check out
favorite
his
episode.
book. I'll go back to check
Yeah.
out his book and read it for
Yeah.
yourself. And those of you who know of the incident are going to make your call on it. I've worked with Seamus for a while, and I consider him to be of the highest caliber, especially in what he does now and how he helps
Yeah.
through the Rockland County Sheriff's Office with the intelligence unit that he serves on. And I have nothing but good things. But very quickly, I just want to go back. I'm going to show a picture quick of Jay being level-headed.
No. Look at that fucking beard. I was not level-headed right there.
Tell the story behind the back of that photo.
The back of it?
The back
What do you mean?
story of that photo.
Oh. I thought you meant behind the photo. I'm like, I can't see what's behind it. Well, first I will tell that story, but I don't want to steal any fame or time here. Do you have a favorite episode or a favorite thing that we did so far?
Jesus, it's like asking if you have a favorite child.
Yeah. I know you told me that you like Olivia much more. Oh wait, no, sorry.
I don't know if my kids even watch this. I have to actually ask my daughter later when I see her if they actually even watch.
I'll edit that and send it to her and him.
That's hilarious. It's like asking if you have favorite children. I love both my children equally. I really do. Episodes. Negrelli's episode was really kind of a hallmark for me because, the leadership part of it, and the fact that he was in the executive levels and he was dealing directly with the governor's office, and he's basically calling it for what it is nowadays, criminal justice reform. I'm sure as a superintendent, he has his haters and his followers and former acting superintendent, but I want to believe that for the most part, he led the agency in a really good direction. Not to detract from what current leaders are doing. I know you're going to be more brutal about this, but I think Steve Negrelli's episode for me was kind of the hallmark of episodes because he really speaks to leadership and what being a true leader is about. And that was mine. I want to say, honestly, the first one we did, we were both kind of anxious about it. When we got it started and we had a natural kind of flow to what we were doing, I think the first one is definitely another favorite of mine as well.
Yeah, because that got the ball rolling, and I think you mentioned a few times, because I know a few people said to me, like, our amazing relationship that we have together is what makes the podcast. The fact that we kind of complement each other, I guess, in a weird way. So the picture that you brought up about 26 minutes ago, with me with my beard.
26 minutes ago. That was like 3.7 minutes ago.
I know, it feels like it was like an hour ago.
You need to stop eating edibles prior to the podcast.
So that's that. I don't partake in extracurricular activity on a regular basis. However, me explaining one in particular incident was I came into possession of a gummy that had THC as one of its main ingredients. The package. Now I will go back to I am a lover, a connoisseur, an infatuator, if you will, of candy. So when I see candy, I don't have much of a gauge to only have a piece. I like to eat the entire thing. So anybody that has done an edible knows exactly where it's going. If I were to read the instructions on the package, it states clearly that you should probably take a corner of this said edible and let it do its thing before you consume any more.
Yep.
That's not what happened. I threw it in as if it was a regular candy, and approximately maybe half hour later, man, oh man. So, it hit me
for the readers.
like
I'm not going to mention who's in this photo, but this is a Christmas party, and this is Jay actually telling the story to the group of this whole. And there's Santa in the background. Person who rhymes with Allie is in that Santa costume, but that's Jay actually recounting the exact story that he's talking about right now on the podcast, which was absolutely hilarious. And the other part of it, you can't see it in the photo, but you were sweating like profusely. You had beads of sweat dripping down that bald noggin of yours, and it was
That's
freaking hilarious.
That's called passion. I was showing my passion for that moment.
It was passion or
So
withdrawals, one of the two.
So the moral of that story is the first, I don't know, 15 minutes or so after it hit me, my wife could not stop laughing at the things that I was saying and the things that I wanted to do. We decided to go to the gym. And on the way to the gym, I started to not feel as if I should be going to the gym. I was the operator of the vehicle, which I shouldn't have been. And about 2/3 of the way there,
You pulled
it
over.
hit me. I pulled over and it hit me like a Juan Soto home run out of the park. Holy tamale, hot tamales, puke. I was puking on the side of the road. I thought I was dead.
You switched drivers at that point because you realized.
Yes, I switched drivers. Gina drove me home. I felt like it was a 2.5 week drive home. By the time we got home, I went to bed. Now, this wasn't late in the afternoon. It was probably 2 or 3, somewhere around there, maybe a little bit later. I go directly to bed after puking more and having to come out both ends. And I sleep until the next day.
What is going on here?
Almost 24 hours I slept. It was one of those things where it smacked me like a ton of bricks. I would like to forget that one particular moment in my life, but here we are again, recanting it.
I think we had a little technical difficulties on my end.
Yeah, I think we did. I lost you for a second there.
Yeah, it said waiting to reconnect. So, but it still says it's recording. So
yeah, we'll hopefully cross our fingers and hopefully that went by. So I told the remainder of the story or what I remember of it, and yeah, so that was me on edibles. After I retired, obviously, and I haven't done them again. So
yeah, talk about a gateway drug.
Yeah, for sure. So where we see another topic you wanted to bring up is where do we see ourselves going, right? As far as guests and the projection, if you will, of an NOFC. What are your ideas and thoughts on that?
I have a certain family member who retired from the NYPD. I'm going to see if he's willing to come on. I'm not sure if he's going to be willing to, but I'm kind of asking him live on the podcast if he's going to be willing to come on. He's a retired sergeant who was part of essentially like their SWAT team, who I think would be a great guest. We have a couple of other local agency people. I also have a friend of mine who lives in Canada. I want to ask him to come on, who's retired from law enforcement. I know you have somebody from a local PD that you want to have on as well, correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's getting that ball rolling, and we also have had a few people reach out, so we're going to try to plan it accordingly. Although, in essence, I love the state police. I want to broaden our horizons and have people on with different perspective as well. Because during this week, I had dinner with a retired local police agency lieutenant who described to me some things that happened with our agency, his agency, and other locals' agencies. And it just opens your eye to how different agencies view different policing, if you will, differently. And it just made me realize that, it'll be good to have somebody else's point of view on here. It's not all about the purple tie passion.
Correct. Correct.
So
absolutely.
yeah, more and different guests and broader topics, and me being, if it's possible, probably not, a little bit more of a dick and some more accountability for the circumstances and the people and the situations that we speak of, which is a good lead way into another topic that you wanted to talk about is the current morale of police in our country, more specifically the state of New York. I think New York's probably a good starting point. Go for that.
Yeah, so I actually spoke to a person who's an active trooper, and we went on we were talking about, give me one second. I have to dismiss something there. Okay. About morale, about how low the morale is. And then you had told a different story about somebody who's an old time boss who who talks about how the younger generation complains too much about certain things. And while I agree with that, I think the old paradigm of suck it up and deal with it mentality, which is kind of what we came on as, is kind of no more applicable, because nowadays with the advent of criminal justice reform and what they're doing with body cams and what they're doing with social media, it's a different animal. It's a different animal than it was police work. I think 20 years ago, you did just suck it up and deal with it, because at that point, I think police leadership supported police officers a lot more back then. And now, because of the advent, the persecution of the police departments, persecution of police officers, you have a governor and a attorney general who have kind of kowtowed to the progressive legislature and enacted a lot of these criminal justice reforms, like raise the age, the Bail Elimination Act, the discovery changes pertaining to prosecution, the timeliness of turning evidence over, the topic of turning over officers' personal information during the discovery process, during trial. All of that has really changed the game and the parameters. So to the person who's been on 30 years in the state police who says, suck it up, we agree with you. I do agree with you, because I did suck it up. You know, we've all been stuck at the traffic post in the rain for 12 hours. I've worked the homicides for 37 hours. I'm good with sucking it up. But what I'm not good with is how leadership and state government in New York and many other states are actively and aggressively trying to do police officers and to file personnel complaints against them because of a very slanted and progressive local and state government. So that's my thing. I have a story. I'll let you talk here for a second, but I have a story about that, about a body cam incident that recently happened that this person told me about yesterday. So what did you want to say about it?
It's a lead into that, and it's exactly where I wanted to go, or kind of down that same alleyway of the body cam talk. You know, since we have been on, we might have missed it last week, but you know, there was 2 shootings in upstate New York that troopers were involved in, and then there was another one within this past week that a local trooper here was involved in. And for those of us that pay attention, I think we talked about this before, but more times than not, the media headline is trooper shoots and kills so and so, and then they lead into whatever it is. Not troopers respond. It's more specifically the one in our area here, my area here, that was only maybe 15 minutes away. Troopers respond to a domestic of a male subject getting stabbed. Upon arrival, troopers discover a gentleman on the front porch with a stab wound, and he indicates that his wife, who is inside, who the troopers have been gone there on multiple occasions, that should or shouldn't, depending on the circumstance, mean very little. And he states that she stabbed him and she has a gun. I will not get into, well, you know, I will get into it, because this is what the story is, and you could read it.
It's publicly available.
It's absolutely publicly available. She comes out, and the news says she displays what appears to be a handgun, and the troopers shoot, and she shoot her, and she was later pronounced dead at the local hospital. It sucks. I'm sorry for their family, but more importantly, I'm sorry for the troopers that had to make that split decision to do what they had to do. And you dig into the story and you see the comments from the common people who say, appeared to be a gun, but was it? Okay, but was it not? How do you know? I'm all about it. I'm all about let the story be told. I'm not going to say that it was or wasn't, but they showed what it was. It literally looks like a 9mm handgun. No one, unless you look at it for probably 5 or more seconds, would know that that's not a regular handgun. You try to make a life decision in 5 seconds.
Yep.
It's not happening. You know what I mean?
No.
So it's that I can't imagine. So this is leading into the morale currently of the police in New York. I believe that they both troopers involved were held back from going on duty for a little bit of time. And it was, last I heard, they were going to go back like 2 or 3 days later. I know there was a shooting a few years ago. There was a trooper involved, and he was involved with a shooting, and the next day he went back to work. How is that even possible? Even if the trooper did everything completely the way he was supposed to, and it was completely a legal shoot, and there was no hair on it, why does that trooper, female or male, go back to work the next day? It's my opinion, just my opinion. You could agree or disagree with me. There should be a set amount of time that trooper is required to have some type of counseling. Should have to talk to somebody. And if he's good, she's good to go. Both of them, either one of them are good to go, then so be it. But they should have that time to let their brain focus on what they did and absorb it. You know what I mean?
That's also a lead into episode 4, exactly what you just said there about trauma awareness. You know, there should be, because studies have shown, and especially during, you know, my graduate school research, there are published studies that show that after a critical incident where a police officer or a firefighter is involved in something, that there is, because of the injury that happens to the brain, to essentially the fight or flight part of your brain, that it affects the prefrontal cortex, that it affects your logic and reason and the way you can recollect factually the steps of what happened. And if you don't have, you should have a certain amount of time. I forgot exactly what the times are, but I think it's at least 2 to 3 days for your brain to reset itself before you go to give a compelled statement or to have to testify about that. People should, be given resources, like you said. They should be given therapy in addition to the employee assistance program. And I know that EAP people actively do that, and they try to connect people with resources, and they do good work. But the fact that people should automatically not have to give a compelled statement after a critical incident, because factually their brains physically are not able to, in most instances, give accurate recollections of what happened right after the incident because of the trauma to the brain. And you're so spot on with that, dude. So spot on. Again, episode 4.
Yep. Yeah. And it just goes to show you, like, our leadership and where we're at. We should have some accountability for how these individuals are in charge of our police officers.
Yeah.
And if there weren't other leaderships within the country doing it, I would say, all right, maybe I understand it's a complete new shift. But there's many leaders, sheriffs, chiefs of police. Typically, it's down south. Some of them are out in the West, Midwest, if you will, that are standing up when reporters are alluding to what a police officer. I saw either an Instagram or a podcast about a police officer. Oh, the car got stolen, and the bad guy stole the cop car, and the bad guy ended up killing somebody, I believe, in a car accident or doing something really bad in the result of that theft of the motor vehicle, the police car. And one of the reporters said, is it not your policy that each police officer, once they exit their vehicle, they're supposed to lock their doors? And he nipped that in the bud by saying, this is not about our police officers and whether they're at fault. A criminal who later, or maybe he already killed somebody, I don't want to hang my hat on what the story is, but the criminal who stole the police car and as a result of that did A, B, or C, that is the person that's at fault, not my cop that forgot to lock his or her door. That's not where we're at. That is not. We need more people like that. We need more people in this agency of ours to say, yeah, you know what? Maybe he wasn't wearing his Stetson, but he got the job done and he saved somebody's life, or he was fighting with somebody. I told you, I think it was during one of our leadership episodes, where we talked about this exact thing, Stetson being on. And here's a guy upstate who's rolling around with somebody, gets bloodied up during an arrest, a legal arrest for whatever it may be. And the body cam footage shows that he didn't have his Stetson on. Something to that extent had to do with his Stetson, his hat on during the entire incident. And that's what they wanted to talk to him about, or potentially jam him up for, is because his lid wasn't on.
Well,
The fuck?
that story ties into, that other state, the things you see from other states where, sheriffs actually get on and do the right thing and defend their people and don't automatically presume that there's guilt or innocence there in the official duties of what those police officers or deputies are doing. In our state, we have, because of the social justice reforms of 2020, we actually have laws in place that relegate any officer involved fatality, whether the officer's on duty or off duty. The Attorney General's office now has the specific ability to, and not only ability to, but they've delegated themselves to investigate all officer involved shootings. And they are going after police officers left and right, even for innocuous things. So going back to what you're saying, these sheriffs, they defend their people. In our state, we don't, because I firmly believe, based on the laws and how they've effectuated those changes, they're making police officers targets automatically. And so you're getting back to the morale thing, it's killing morale.
Yeah. I do think there's a better way to go about it, but I think that every shooting should be thoroughly investigated.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. For whether you're exonerating the police officer or whether the police officer is wrong, it should be investigated, and it should be determined via that investigation, but it should automatically be assumed that he or she was in the wrong. So go back to your little story, body cam story that you had this past week. I didn't want to forget about that.
I talked to a person who's still working, and I won't say where they're from or where they work. But other than to say that they recollected a story of how they were involved in a pursuit. I'm not going to say when or where, a vehicle pursuit where they pursued somebody for a certain amount of time, and the body cam, as soon as you turn the lights on or other means, they activate the body cam, the audio and video on the body cam, and to document and exactly what's happening. The person that I was talking about says that they finally stopped the vehicle after the pursuit, and they go back to their car after they have this person in custody. They go back to their car, and they're having a conversation with another police officer about fact pattern stuff and having what they call a member conference, where they are talking off the cuff about different things that are happening that may not be necessarily germane to the prosecution or the arrest of this individual. So by regulation, you're allowed to go back to your car and mute the body cam while the video is still running. This person ends up getting back out of their patrol vehicle and goes back to engage this individual or the vehicle itself. And when they do that, they forget to unmute the body cam. And when they forget to unmute the body cam, they go back, and because it's a pursuit, the body cam footage is reviewed by a supervisor. And when this happens, the supervisor realizes apparently that the muting was still taking effect, and that the officer forgot to reactivate the audio portion. That automatically becomes a personnel complaint against the officer involved because of the protocols of the agency. And I'll just say it, it's the state police. I'm not going to say where it happened or when it happened, but the fact that this is an automatic complaint against personnel because you forgot to unmute the body cam is really unacceptable. Number one. Number two, this is why police officers don't want to stop cars anymore. This is why police officers don't want to engage criminals, because they fear that they're going to get in trouble for forgetting to unmute the body cam that they're wearing when they're doing their job. It's the height of lunacy, honestly. The height of lunacy.
I agree. Something that you just did, I apologize to the viewers of episode 10, because Carm and I talked, and this more likely or not is going to go a lot of different directions. And something that Carm just brought up made me want to recall our last week's episode with Seamus, and it's not necessarily directed at him. One of the statements he made, and I'm sure if I asked him to allude, he would allude to where I'm going with this, which is he feels that everybody should attempt to interdict or at least look beyond the ticket. And at face value, I think that's a noble cause and noble statement. But if you dig deep into that statement, which I typically do, and I had some time to think about it, I don't think it's appropriate or even feasible to have every single police officer or trooper be able to do that. And so I think what that leads me to say is that you're going to have cops, police officers that do exactly, and it's been through the tell of time where you have cops that are good at doing VNT, and you have cops that are doing good at penal law, interdictors, commercial vehicle guys, K9 guys. You have your gamut of good cops that do things that are good. And then you have areas that are like, I hated writing reports. I wasn't good at it. Sucked at it. So
Yeah,
I probably should have.
I remember.
Yeah. Thanks. But the point of it is that there's no way that you can have every trooper be an interdictor or cop. It's just, it's the nature of the beast. I think everybody realizes that. And I don't want to say that everybody should have discretion to a certain extent. We talked about this a few different times, what discretion means and how that can be displayed. But you should definitely have some discretion, and to each your own. Well, what bothers us and me, I think, collectively, is your guys that just tunnel vision. I'm writing this ticket. I don't care if it's your mom, my mom, if it's grandma going down the road and just trying to go to church on a Sunday morning. I'm writing this ticket because I need to get my 5 tickets and then I'm done for the day. That's the shit that fucking fuels my rage. So we could switch. Let's turn the page.
Well, hold on.
Let's go
before you do that. Yeah, before you do that, I want to touch on one other conversation I had with this person.
Oh yes.
This person also said to me, and this is the part that I wanted to bring up about morale, about how morale is just really down. And this person's a longtime trooper who was actually very active and did the job and continues to do the job. But for a longtime person to say that there's a problem with morale and how the morale is down in the police agencies, it says everything. Number one. Number two, this person also said to me that you and I in this podcast has become a focal point, and everybody in the state police is talking about, not everybody, but a lot of people in the state police are talking about the topics that we're bringing up, because we're kind of becoming the voice of the people who work for the agency that can't speak freely because of the fact that they're prohibited from talking freely about the things that they do. And two, a voice for the people in other agencies who are also watching this because of the same policies and the same laws that are effectuated that are making their jobs very difficult. Laws that are well-intentioned, mind you, and I don't doubt that they are well-intentioned, but they are dramatically ill-informed and effectuated in very problematic fashions, and it's become very obvious in the topic. And I wanted this to be a lead into the part of in the framework that I had put out about the Senate bill proposed. Do you want me to talk about that now, or do you want to wait and talk about what you were just going to talk about?
Yeah, no. Let's talk about that, and then the social media.
Yeah.
And before we get any further, for all of you that watch and reach out and can't speak because you're afraid that you're going to get jammed up and they're going to see you commenting on a post or following us or liking us, this is from me to everybody watching. Fuck you, you dickheads. All right, guys? This is from me, helping them display their feelings.
This is delicious filtered water.
It's okay. You can say fuck you because somebody watches a podcast and the division doesn't like it. Come on.
I prefer to approach it in a little bit more of a formal and qualified way. But
as you would, but it's not to any one particular person. It's just to the idea of a simple trooper, cop, police officer can't agree and like what somebody's opinion because it could be detrimental to what their goal is. Legislator, go.
The legislature has introduced, there's a certain state senator who's introduced Senate bill. I got to read it from the framework here. I was told not to call it a script, by the way. A certain retiring person said, if it's a script, you know who you are. Rhymes with Is Jackson.
Oh, creepy fuck?
Creepy. Actually, he's going to feel happy that we're actually mentioning his name. Probably not, but we don't care. So Senate Bill 3662A being proposed by a certain progressivist legislator from a certain district is proposing this bill, which if ratified and signed into law would ban and eliminate routine traffic stops. And what that means for the public who's watching this who may not know what a routine traffic stop is, it's a traffic stop for a plate that is not a license plate that's not affixed, you not signaling when you make a turn, you not wearing a seatbelt, you not having two headlights lit at night, having a plate lamp out on your license plate. Like, those are routine traffic stops.
Was it? So is that defined somewhere what a routine traffic stop is?
In the definition in 3662A in the legislative proposal that I read this week, you can see it on NewYorkSenate.gov. It discusses what basically comprises a routine, quote unquote, routine traffic stop. Yes.
But does it define it? It discusses it, but does it define it?
It does define it. I don't want to misquote exactly.
Yeah. That's fine.
But it basically, if this is effectuated, it's going to outlaw routine traffic stops. And
yeah.
Do you want me to tell you what I think that means to the? Do you want me to keep going? Yeah, or do you have something you want to say right now?
No. Go for it. I know exactly where you're going. I like it.
So the routine traffic stops that are plate lamps, license plates, etc. This is what's being proposed because they think it disproportionately affects certain communities and certain people who are being, quote unquote, targeted, if you will, for certain things. So let me tell you what a routine traffic stop has stopped so far in the world. It stopped a little known guy named Joel Rivkin, who was a serial killer who was murdering female escorts and murdering them and doing awful things with them. A routine traffic stop by a trooper on Long Island years ago for, I believe it was a plate lamp or something else simple. That was a routine traffic stop, led to the trooper discovering a decomposing murder victim in the truck bed of the truck. Let me tell you what else a routine traffic stop has encountered. There's a little incident that happened in 1985 called the Oklahoma City bombing, where hundreds of people were murdered by a domestic terrorist. A routine traffic stop by, I believe, an Oklahoma state trooper stopped Timothy McVeigh and led to the apprehension of a very evil and wanted individual. So if we in New York State eliminate routine traffic stops, we're eliminating the possibility for police officers all around the state in each of the 62 counties from stopping really bad people from doing really bad fucking things. So I don't know if you can tell or not, but this pisses me off. This type of legislation is the antithesis of what we should be doing in any state in this country. Limiting police officers' abilities to recover stolen handguns, major amounts of narcotics loaded with fentanyl that are killing at record numbers white males in our country, wanted murderers and wanted felons. This is the most simply ridiculously proposed legislation next to the Bail Elimination Act that they effectuated in 2020 than I can think. So to whoever's watching this, I don't care if it offends you. I really think it's pretty disgusting that you're looking to tie the hands of police officers who take violent felons off of the street every single day. And again, you wonder why morale is low amongst the police agencies in the state of New York. You wonder why police don't want to go out and do their jobs. This is exactly why they don't want to.
My man. I needed that from you. I needed that in more ways than one. I'm glad. I can't even say anything after that. That was amazing. I was starting to tear up for a second. That was so good. Holy fuck. No wonder you're a good speaker. Fucking A. All right. Episode 10's over. Have a good one. I literally, I could say nothing. I agree 125% with Carm on that. And I obviously couldn't have said it any better. I'm glad he got passionate about that, because it should mean something to more than just me, more than just him. I should mean stuff to the everyday person that isn't law enforcement driven or isn't somebody that has a relative in law enforcement and is aware. It should mean something to the everyday person that's just trying to live their life, because this could affect you in some way, shape, or form. Carm mentioned maybe a half a dozen circumstances or cases. I can guarantee you that there are probably thousands upon thousands that are just not as popular and noteworthy than the ones that he did, and maybe not as amazing, but they did. It happens every day. This happens every day. So I agree that if this goes, I don't think it can, but who knows? Who knows in the current climate that we're in?
I honestly, in 2019, when they asked me to speak at Brooklyn Law School about the bail elimination impact and what it would mean, I didn't think that people would be foolhardy enough to actually allow legislators to make that law happen, and they have. And the general public has zero idea of the true violent impact of what that has meant for law in this state. And you can say, you can run numbers, and as Steve Negrelli said in the prior podcast, the numbers speak for themselves. They're there. And I can tell you personally, laws like this are affecting, they're affecting the very communities that they say they're disproportionately affecting. They will not protect those communities from further violence if it's actually put into law. This routine traffic stop bill, 3662A, S3260, whatever the number is. It's very foolhardy, and it's not being thought through. And people are trying to appease communities without looking at the root causes of why we're being limited. And granted, and I've said this in prior podcasts, there are a very, very small proportion of police officers who are evil or who are crooked. In my career, I arrested three different police officers when I was in the bureau for things that they did. And I took pride in having to do that because the things that I arrested them for were truly evil, and it needs to happen. But by and large, 99.9% of the cops that I've served with are honest people with good moral character. They're ethical. They make ethical decisions. Sometimes they make stupid decisions. Stuff like that happens. But these types of law proposals are absolutely preposterous, and people have no idea. They have no idea what these state legislators are trying to shove through. It's absurd.
It is. It really is. And instead of just going by if you go by the numbers, I know our job is important in the sense of we shouldn't be making the mistakes that we make for the police officers whom I arrested. And I can do nothing but agree with that. If a police officer does something, I think I hold them to a higher standard than somebody else. But it's the nature of the beast, and it's by numbers that you're going to have a certain percentage, a certain number. They're going to fuck up, and they're going to break the law. And I want to go on record by saying to those police officers, that small percentage, that small number, they should 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, and I don't think there's any other good police officer that would argue, they should be held accountable.
Yep.
We had an incident down here with something that happened, and there's a lot of riff on what should happen about a local cop that got into some hot water. And I don't know what the circumstances were totally, but if it was looked at that it was wrong, then it was wrong.
Yeah.
So that's the best way I'm going to describe that. Where are you steering the ship right here? Because I have one other thing I want to bring up.
No, go ahead.
You good?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a Facebook page, a state police Facebook page. Only state police members are a part of. And this past week, I don't know if you saw it, but a gentleman he sent a farewell email, and he copied and pasted it to the page. Well written, directed at our leadership.
I don't know if he copied and pasted it or somebody else copied and pasted it.
Somebody did.
Yeah.
Somebody did. And it's my point is irrelevant on who the initiator of it was. My point is this: it was a pretty well written email outlining what he thought needs to be improved and some of the faults within the state police. So the kicker is, I think he had military time on or other police time on, and he retired. Yeah, he retired with 17 years on our job, the state police. But whatever, he still had 20 years in the system after buying back or whatever. And it's amazing to me that somebody that is been with the state police more than 20 years, 30 years, let's call it. Maybe let's call it 35 years because they don't know what else to do with their life, but to stay with the state police for their entire life, which is fine too. I'm not judging that. But their comment was, how do you have the right to complain only doing 17 years on our job? What did you do? Who says that he didn't do more than any other person with 30 years on our job? We don't know. The point is, if you don't know what somebody did in their career, their entire career, you have no right judging the fact that they think there's something wrong with our management. I'm going to rest assured that something happened to him to lead to that opinion, right?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, like, sometimes we are our own fucking worst enemy, and we can't just let somebody have an opinion.
Along those lines, too, it used to be commonplace for people to stay in this employment, in this job, working for the state police for 25, 30 years. That was more common than not that people would stay for 30. Now, with all of the stuff that's happening with Raise the Age, with the Bail Elimination Act, with the reduced morale, you see people retiring and pulling the plug at 20 years just because they're just fed up and tired with the way things are being done. This agency is not the same agency it was 20 years ago. There's not as much loyalty for this very reason. And hey, listen, right, wrong, or different. Me personally, I wouldn't have posted that, but I'm not going to say this guy can't, because he can do what he wants to do.
True.
Not my way I would have gone about it, but I'm not going to say that you should or shouldn't do that. That's not my place. I read it. I'm well aware of exactly what you're talking about, but the points he makes are very valid, very, very valid. About morale, about leadership not being leadership, about being micromanaged, about the law effectuations that have changed and made their jobs very impossible to do nowadays.
Yeah. And you know what? A personal opinion on whether someone should or shouldn't do that. And even to the person that commented that he didn't have, like, that's his choice to comment on that. It's not, I don't give a flying fuck. I'm just saying if I'm thinking it, I'm not that intelligent. I can guarantee you there are other people that are thinking the same fucking thing. Like, leave the fucking guy alone. Let him say his piece. There was another incident, same page, or it might have been a different page. There's a picture of a trooper at an accident scene. He wasn't wearing a Stetson. His sunglasses were up on his head. And some of the old timers say, what are we doing? What are we doing? Unprofessional. The trooper did not look unprofessional, in the sense of he didn't look like he was a soup sandwich. His uniform looked pretty decent to me. It was simply because he didn't have a Stetson on and his sunglasses were on his head. In that of itself, it can come across that way, but it's not like the state police that post unprofessional social media ads with the intent to show a trooper in a certain light. This was a picture that was obviously taken at a scene that was posted probably without his or her permission. It was a male trooper, and we don't know the circumstances. So give the guy the benefit of the doubt, because later in the week there was a picture posted of some old school guys in the mid to late 90s that were leaning up against trees. So like it's equal to that time. Like, you don't lean up against trees as troopers at So whatever, just let it be. Again, this is just my opinion. We should just kind of be lighter on ourselves. If we're gonna go after management on how they should look after us, we should also be a little bit lighter on ourselves when we don't know the situation.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. I agree. You don't know the circumstances. Maybe he got out of the car in a rush to deal with a certain situation and forgot to throw his lid back on. Or he may have just ran after somebody and had his Stetson hanging from his gun belt. In general, I do think I have seen a lot of troopers out during the day without their lids on, without their Stetson, and I do have a problem with that. I'm consider me old school with that stuff. I think if you're going to wear the gray bag that a lot of other people have died for, and you've fought through hell in a 6-month academy to earn the right to wear that Stetson, you should put it on. But again, I don't know the background behind the story, so I'm not going to comment. But the overall theme is that the morale is very much down because the older ways and the older traditions are kind of being forgotten about, and it's part and parcel. Exactly. How can you expect this kid to wear his lid if you're putting out social media posts, which this is the lead into that, but how do you expect troopers to wear Stetsons on the side of the road all the time if you're posting videos about them wearing WWE wrestling belts and sliding down slides? So
yeah, that's my point.
Can't have one thing and not the other.
Exactly. That's my sole point. So that leads into our next thing that I wanted to bring up, and I know that you said that you wanted to talk about, but do you want to do it or do you want me to?
I'm not going to name the name. Yeah, I'll briefly hit on it and you can piggyback off. I got a message. I got called by a person who works for state police recruiting, who actually reached out regarding expressing interest in potentially putting somebody on our podcast, because we had hit on the topic of social media, about how ridiculous the social media posts are. And this person, apparently this video, our one podcast episode, was watched by a lot of people in Albany, and it struck a chord, as well as a separate email being sent, which I'm not going to get into detail about that because that person's still working, that led to apparently us attracting the attention of leadership. To that end, the person reached out, expressed interest. We said, yeah. I said, yeah, let me talk to my partner, meaning Jay, to see if you're interested. Of course, you were receptive to it. And we had made basically a group communication with this individual about potentially setting it up. Go ahead. You can tell the story after that.
Yeah. So this was initiated.
They call that the layup in volleyball, right?
Yeah. I fucking love it. This was initiated pretty within that week of that episode coming out, and it was when it was hot and it was a big thing. So the individual reached out, and we both emphatically said yes. I was like, "Fuck yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to talk to him about what's going on." What bothers me about it is that they just wanted to know too much about our demographic, and they basically ghosted us after we said yes. And they wanted to. I'll say it. Carm thinks it's us being petty, but I don't. I think a lot of people want to know exactly what the fuck it was. The specific question was, how many viewers and how many likes or followers do you have on your videos? And I said, well, they range from X amount to X amount. I was like, it's literally our, however, 4th episode or 5th episode. I was like, so how does that, you either want to rectify the issue or you want to fucking play your cards. And it might not have even been the individual who reached out. It might have been someone else that was kind of like.
Well, we're also presupposing that that's the reason. We don't know that that's the reason.
Well, I don't know what's the reason, but that's a question that was fucking asked. So, like, I can only lead to believe that they're looking at, well, how many people this going to reach that we're going to have on. And we would have been professional. We would have asked appropriate questions. If they didn't want to talk about certain topics, I would have brought them up anyway.
No, I think we joke. You're just joking. That we were. If they came on the show, if somebody from state police recruiting wanted to come on the show, we still would entertain it.
It's an open invitation.
By no means do we need you for this podcast, because our numbers are speaking for themselves, and we're happy that we're kind of becoming the voice for those who still have to work, for every agency, not just the troopers. But we would love to have you on, and we will give you a respectful setting and discourse for what you need to say about why you're doing what you're doing. I'm hoping things start to change, because we've discussed how some of the videos have changed, but at the same time, it just makes it look like, it just kind of made me go like, after the fact, I was like, I had this face going like, it didn't make sense. It was kind of, it was just kind of a shitty circumstance. And I'm like, okay, well, at least just, you reached out to us. We didn't reach out to you, because we don't care. If you're going to reach out to us and then we're asking you 2 times after and you don't respond to that, I don't know. Yeah. I would say this to you, Jay. If I had the same problem with you, I would say right to your face. So I have no problem saying it to somebody's face. Like, I think it was kind of crappy way to deal with it. And again, we would welcome anybody from the job on to talk about what's important to them, about in an approved manner, to do what they need to do. But at the same time, it's like, I don't appreciate my time being wasted, because my time is incredibly valuable, because I'm a very, very busy man with what I do in my life. And I know you are the same way. So don't waste my time. That's all I'm saying.
No, it's holding ourselves to a certain standard, and we're not, and we're retired, so you don't have anything to hold over our heads. So like, we're going to speak our mind, and I think that we're pretty level-headed. You know, I'm going to use that word again on how we speak. But I like to speak on the side of me wanting accountability, and the guys and girls that don't have the voice, for somebody to at least be able to say it, and they can just be like, thank you. Because every week, somebody reaches out, usually more than a few people, half a dozen to a dozen people on the bare minimum. Thank you for this episode. It was great, whatever the case may be. And for me, that's all I need. So it's going to suck because we're going to go for a while.
It also ties into leadership, because leadership is, and I've mentioned this book more than once on here, Jocko Willink, about leadership and owning your successes and owning your failures. I think as an agency, you have to own your successes, but you also have to own your failures. And right now, there are definitely some failures that need to be addressed, that should be addressed in a healthy discourse with intelligent discussion that need to happen. If you're a true leader, and listen, I know for what I do for work now, I'm not going to get into that, but I know that when I fail at something, I own it, and I go, hey, I messed up on something. If my people messed up, I own that failure, because by proxy, that's my failure as well. Just like when I was the senior in Haverstraw, when I fucked something up, I would own it. I would call my boss and say, hey, this is what happened. It wasn't the best of incidents. This is what we're dealing with. And I would fall on the sword because it's the right thing to do. As an agency, as agency leaders, I can say this from experience because I've been a proven leader. You own your failures just as much as you own your successes. And for them to not to do that, it left a kind of a sour taste in my mouth,
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. I that same methodology is how I parented, is like with my children. If they did something and they fucked up, you fucked up. Like you can't, let's do better. They come home and they have good grades or they do something good, I'm going to be the first person to praise them and tell them how good we did. It's simple. It's simple management 101. You have to praise equally as much as you scold.
Yeah. Absolutely. But there's a healthy way to do it. And I think that some of the things that are happening, especially with regard to the body cam, personnel complaints, when somebody forgets to unmute themselves, simple mistake. And if there's nothing attached to it and nobody's making a complaint and the person behind the wheel is not making a complaint, most importantly, the citizen, because we're accountable to the citizens. If nobody's making a complaint and you're automatically jamming up police officers for forgetting to unmute a body cam, that's a failure. It needs to be addressed. It absolutely needs to be addressed at the policymaker level. And I'm fully aware of impact on policies and doing the right thing. And I know that's going to upset some people when I say that, but I don't really care. I'm going to speak my truth about it and be respectful at the same time about it being a failure. So to the troopers, to any other police agencies, if you want to come on and have a conversation, anybody in any of the counties I've worked, any of the leaders, if you want to come on and have a conversation about your body cam policies and your social media policies, we would welcome that intelligent discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. So I will say this. So we got our order, and this is what I ordered. I know that shirt is from the website. So the shirts are similar to Catskill Mountain Moonshines. They're slightly heavier, the ones I ordered. That's a back. It's the same exact shirt that I have on. And then in the front is the upper left. Same thing. So we do have a few of them if anybody wants them. If you want to do local, I also got there's our light sweatshirts. Hoodie with the white, same thing, upper left, and then the back. So they're lighter sweatshirts. They're extremely soft, good quality. If anybody locally wants what I just showed, reach out to either me or Carm. We could set up what we call a relay. Anybody else from further away, we could try to do a troop relay and really piss off the management.
Or we could just meet up with you somewhere and
that's more likely what'll happen. We'll get them to you.
So just very quickly, I just want to mention, I think it's super important, and this is specifically targeted to people like my cousin and others who work for, especially NYPD, other bigger police agencies that are city agencies. We would love to have you on
100%
to get your voice out there and to talk about some of the important things. Because state policing, rural policing, sometimes city policing is very different than somebody that works for the 4-6 precinct that's on a foot patrol their entire shift. We would love to have you folks on, and I have nothing but respect and love for you. At some point, I want to have somebody from state police major crimes on to talk about something. The person I have in mind knows who they are if they're still watching the podcast. At some point I want to have them on, and I think we have a great trajectory in terms of guests that we want to have on here to tell the truth.
On a side note, June 12th, 2025, out in Shawnee, PA. It's a bridge dinner. Bridge dinner, for anybody that doesn't know, I know a lot of guys upstate don't know. It's a celebration of
The
the
three
local.
states, right?
So it's
PA.
Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York State Police get together out in Shawnee, PA, and it's called the Bridge Dinner. It was originated back in the late 90s, I believe, and it's pretty much to show support for each other. Each year, a specific amount of troopers from each agency are honored. And it's basically they're a 501c3. I forget what that, but
It's a
they're
nonprofit organization,
nonprofit. So they
federally
raise
designated.
money. The tickets, they do a raffle. Any money raised there goes to the families that are honored. Whether it's they lost somebody in their family or whether they're going through a hardship or a sickness within the family, an agency nominates somebody, they agree on it, and usually they get, I want to say, between 200 to 400 show up. So if anybody from a little bit outside, I know Steve Negrelli's went in the past, and anybody from further away want to go, you guys can reach out to us, and we can send you the information. Or if you just want to donate or buy a raffle ticket, you could do that. That would be awesome. And I know that it's difficult for some because we talked about this towards the beginning of the podcast, because you're scared of what may happen if you like, subscribe, share, or comment on a post. But I'm still gonna ask you to do that, because the more we get, I don't want to sound greedy, but it's just simple math. The more we get, the more we could put out, because the more people, if you know anything about social media, the algorithms, the more people comment, like, share, and follow, the more people see us, and then the more we can get the word out.
I
and
think
we have
the other point, I'm going to cut you off on that too, just because I think a lot of state police members have it in their head that if they like a Facebook post, that they could get in trouble for liking a Facebook post. I don't think that's the case. I think if they make comments about official things and official matters with regard to the state police, you could potentially get jammed up for doing that. But for you to like Facebook posts, you're not going to get jammed up for liking Facebook posts. There's
Instagram, TikTok, and you know what? Do what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
I don't want to twist anybody's arm, but just know that, any support that you can give us will be appreciated and will push us in the direction where we hope to go. Go ahead.
Also, Jay's making an appearance at the Bridge Dinner in June. He's going to be there with. You're probably going to have some merch with you, correct? Maybe.
I haven't confirmed that with the director, but I will see if that's allowed.
Well, either way, you could privately make arrangements if somebody wants to reach out to Jay and they want to get stuff. They can get it through him. Either way, I'm not going to be able to make the dinner because I can't say this yet. My a very close family member is expecting, and I don't know if I'm going to be tied up because it's right around that time, so I can't commit to going to the dinner. But I'm there in spirit, and I appreciate that Jay's going to it, and we just totally love you all for supporting us and for all of the. We're happy to be the voice for those who are still working that can't really say what they want to say.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, guys. Episode 10 is a wrap. We'll see you soon.
Ciao for now.